as she said, her role is confidential at this point, so she can maintain her prosecutorial independence. Obviously, I stressed to her very strenuously to say, we want you to zealously, you and the sheriff's department, to zealously investigate this matter.
For 2 weeks, one name has hung over this case like a shadow. Katie. No last name, no face, no statement, just a first name, repeated by Nolan's friends, whispered across comment sections, attached to the final confirmed conversation of an 18-year-old's life. Tonight, that silence is over. Her side of the story is now public. Her family has spoken. And what she says happened on Horn Island does not match what Nolan's friends have told investigators. Not in a small way. In a way that cannot be reconciled. 2 accounts. One afternoon. And only one of them can be true. But that's only the beginning of what's changed. Because this week, something else surfaced. A machine record. GPS coordinates tracking every single movement of the boat that carried Nolan Wells to that island, including 4 separate movements after the moment he was left behind. A record that has no loyalties, no fear, no memory problems. And buried inside that timeline, a recorded call that almost nobody knew existed until now. 6 words spoken from the west tip of Horn Island that change how you hear this entire case. And while all of that was breaking, the case itself crossed a line it can never uncross. A grand jury, officially confirmed. This investigation is now headed somewhere it has never been before. If you've been following this story, you already know the outline. Tonight is about what's underneath it. Stay with me, because the order in which these pieces landed this week matters almost as much as the pieces themselves. Let's start with her.
She shared with the family that there will be a grand jury that she will turn this case over to once they have collected all the information and finished their investigation.
You know how her name entered this case. Not through police, not through a press conference, through panic. On the very first night, July the 4th. Around 11 p.m., a friend contacted the Coast Guard. At 11:07, Christine Wansley's phone rang. It was Warren, one of the boys from the boat. Her son wasn't with them. And somewhere in that frantic night, as Christine called anyone who might know anything, a first name surfaced. Katie, the girl Nolan had supposedly stayed behind to talk to. Then it got worse. Word spread that Katie might be missing too. Nobody on those calls could say who she was, where she lived, who her parents were. For a mother already searching for one child, the night suddenly held the possibility of 2. That fear, at least, was unfounded. Katie was never missing. She left the island safely that day, on a different boat. Her mother is the one who finally stepped forward. Gracie McCormick, posting publicly once the speculation around her daughter spiraled beyond anything a family could ignore. Her statement was direct. Yes, her daughter spent time with Nolan on Horn Island that day. Yes, the 2 parted ways before he went missing. And her daughter has been in contact with Nolan's family, but she has no knowledge of what happened to him after they said goodbye. If that were everything, Katie would fade back into the background of this story. A footnote, a girl on a beach. It isn't everything. Because according to attorney Ben Crump, representing the Wells family, Katie's account of that last conversation is specific, and it directly contradicts the friends. Katie says Nolan told her he was going back. Back to his friends? Back to their boat? Back home? The friends say the opposite. They say Nolan told them he was staying behind. To keep talking to the girl. His choice? His words? Sit with that collision for a second. If Katie is right, then something interrupted Nolan between deciding to leave that island and the boat actually pulling away without him. Something nobody has explained. If the friends are right, then an 18-year-old chose to stand alone on a remote barrier island, 10 miles from the mainland, no cameras, barely any cell signal, and watched his only ride home disappear. Both of those stories were told by people who were there. Both describe the same young man in the same hour, and they cannot both be true. His parents don't believe he stayed. Not for a girl, not for anything. Elmore Wansley put it plainly on national television. We always taught him, if you go with a group, you stay with the group. If you're with me, you come back with me. Nolan always stayed with the group. And there's one more detail here. One that barely got attention when it first appeared. Nolan's best friend, Javon Williams, was on that island too. He told the Biloxi Sun-Herald he last saw Nolan sometime after 4 p.m., hanging out with a girl and other friends. And then he added something. Both of them, Javon and Nolan, had left their phones on the boat. Hold on to that. Nolan's phone, on the boat. Because everything you're about to hear next runs straight through that single fact. Human memory bends. Under grief, under fear, under loyalty, it bends. GPS data doesn't. This week, CBS News obtained tracking records from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, the full movement history of the boat that carried Nolan Wells. And for the first time, we can walk his last day by the numbers. 9:56 in the morning, July the 4th. The boat leaves a private dock. 11:14. It arrives at Horn Island. A holiday, sun, water, music, a group of friends celebrating like thousands of others along that coast. 4:31 in the afternoon. The boat leaves Horn Island. Nolan Wells is not on board. Now watch what happens next, because this is where the record stops being a boat trip and starts being a question. The boat returns to its original dock. Then it moves again. 5:52, it travels into Fort Bayou. 6:06, back at the dock. 7:19 that evening, it shifts one final time to the Fort Bayou boat launch. And from there, it leaves the water entirely. Pulled out, towed over land to a residence in Biloxi belonging to the boat's owners. 4 recorded movements after Nolan was left behind. Not one trip home, a sequence stretching across hours, ending on dry land in another city, all while an 18-year-old stood somewhere on that island as the sky went dark. But the timeline isn't the part that stopped people cold this week. The audio is. NBC News obtained a recorded call made from that boat at the west tip of Horn Island. The operator's voice speaking to dispatch. Listen to the words. Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? The boat was in trouble, taking on water, and then dispatch asked the question. The one question that matters. Is everyone on board in good health? The answer? Yeah. Everybody is on board. I want to get this boat unsank and towed back. Everybody is on board. Nolan Wells was not on board. Now, be careful here, because this is where speculation gets people hurt. We don't know the full context of that call. We don't know exactly when in the sequence it happened, what the operator meant, or who he was counting. It may have a completely innocent explanation, but it is a recorded statement from that boat on that day, and it now sits inside an active investigation right alongside a GPS timeline that no one on board created and no one on board can edit. That's why the family calls this data different. It doesn't grieve, it doesn't protect anyone, it just is.
We're sinking. Can you all please come?
NBC News has obtained audio as part of a records request that details the group calling for towing assistance.
And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's on board.
Then there are the smaller things, the details that would mean nothing in an ordinary story, and refuse to mean nothing in this one. Start with the night he vanished. When Christine Wansley tried to locate her son's phone, she got 2 different answers from 2 different apps. Friends checked his Snapchat location. She checked Life 360, and Life 360 showed something completely different. It showed his phone back on land. Her son was reported missing on an island 10 miles out at sea. His phone was on the mainland. Remember what Javon said? The phones were left on the boat. Suddenly that detail isn't trivia. It's the beginning of an explanation and the start of 10 new questions. Because if the phone came back on the boat, then everything that happened to that phone afterward happened off the island, away from Nolan. And according to Ben Crump, when the family finally got that phone back, messages had been deleted. Deleted. That is Crump's claim, stated publicly. No one has said who deleted them, when, or why. But for a family begging for one straight answer, A phone with missing messages is not a small thing. It's the thing. Meanwhile, the volume of this case keeps growing. Crump says his independent investigators are now fielding 50 to 100 calls a day. People who were on Horn Island that afternoon, people who know people who were. And working against all of it is the island itself. No surveillance cameras, spotty signal, a place whose entire appeal is that nothing watches you there. The one place in this story with no witnesses is the place where the answer lives. Now to the headline development. On July the 15th, Christine and Elmore Wonsley sat down face-to-face with Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers McIlrath, their first direct meeting with her office since their son's body was found. And out of that meeting came confirmation. Once the sheriff's office completes its investigation, the findings go to a grand jury.
We had a very respectful meeting. The thing I assume some of you may know, the thing to announce, she shared with the family that there will be a grand jury that she will turn this case over to.
Here is where precision matters, because this phrase has been thrown around online like a verdict. It isn't one. A grand jury referral is not an accusation, not a charge, not a conclusion that a crime occurred. The district attorney herself noted this is standard procedure in the county for deaths where the cause is unknown. It is a formal review, a room where every relevant fact gets put on the table and examined for whether charges are warranted at all. And a grand jury carries a power this case has lacked from day one. It can compel testimony. People who have stayed quiet can be made to answer under oath. Crump's message to the DA was blunt. Nothing held back. Nothing overlooked. Sheriff John Ledbetter, for his part, says the family will get a thorough and factual investigation. Done right, not just fast. And one persistent rumor needs killing again tonight. The FBI has not taken over this case. Federal agents are assisting with specific elements, most notably interstate threats made against people connected to the investigation. Jackson County remains the lead agency. Support, not command. The weight behind this family keeps building anyway. The Congressional Black Caucus has publicly backed their call for independent answers. Too many questions remain unanswered. And on July the 16th, the Mississippi House of Representatives closed its session with a motion of adjournment in Nolan's memory. A state legislature pausing for one 18-year-old from Ocean Springs. Before we close, 2 corrections, because both spread everywhere, and both were false. The pool party photo. It exploded online as supposed proof that Nolan made it off that island alive. It wasn't. His friend Trakiston Shepard confirmed to Rolling Stone the picture was taken on June the 27th, a full week before Horn Island. Image metadata backed him up. The photo was real. The date attached to it was not. The viral video. Millions heard a voice yelling about a phone and believed they were hearing Nolan's final moments. Shepard ended that one himself. Those were not Nolan's words. They were mine. His voice, not Nolan's. And Shepard said something else that deserves to be heard. He said he's not only hurting for Nolan, he's hurting because when he calls his friends now, he can hear the terror in their voices over what strangers online might do to them. His words, it's gone completely way too far. Nolan's own mother said it even shorter. The internet is unhinged. Strip away the fakes. And what remains is what was always there. A GPS timeline, a recorded call, a contradiction between 2 first-hand accounts that no one with authority has resolved, and a family still waiting. On Monday, July the 20th, that family will gather at Center Point Church in Ocean Springs, the community that watched Nolan grow up, play football, earn his place on a college roster, to lay him to rest. 2 days from now, while the investigation into how he died is still open. No suspects named, no cause of death released. 2 autopsies, the state's and the family's independent one, still unresolved. And somewhere tonight, a young woman named Katie is living with the knowledge that her last conversation with Nolan Wells has become one of the most scrutinized exchanges in America, even though, by every account, she has done nothing but tell what she remembers. One quick note before we go. This case involves real grief, real teenagers, and real families on every side of it. And if this topic sits heavy with you, please take care of yourself. Everything in this video was attributed to named sources and verified reporting as of today. Nothing more, because this family will live with whatever gets said about their son long after the internet moves on, and the least they deserve is accuracy. If this update laid things out clearly, share it with someone following the case. Tell us in the comments which piece weighs heaviest for you: Katie's account, the sinking call, or the phone that came back with messages gone. And please subscribe to this channel, because the moment there is a confirmed development, the grand jury, the autopsies, the phone inspection, we will bring it to you. Somewhere in Mississippi, a mother and father are preparing to say goodbye without knowing why. They deserve the truth, told right, without shortcuts, and without anything added that isn't actually known.